Good afternoon. Today I will share an institutional experience developed at the Universidad del Valle de Guatemala on the integration of artificial intelligence in higher education teaching through a competency-based and a collegial approach to faculty development. This experience emerged as a part of our institutional AI adoption strategy and focus on how faculty practices can be identified, validated, and transformed into institutional knowledge. In recent years, the use of AI in higher education can grow rapidly. Faculty members are experimenting with different tools and approaches in their courses, often creating innovative learning experiences. However, many of these initiatives remain isolated and disconnected from institutional strategies. At UBG, we identify the need to move beyond individual experimentation and create a structured institutional process that could support faculty development and align AI integration with student learning and competency development. At the UBG, the integration of AI is part of institutional strategy led by the Artificial Intelligence Department. As part of this strategy, different working groups were created to support AI integration across the institution. The Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching, STEAD, was responsible for leading the integration of AI into teaching and faculty development. The university had already developed ethical guidelines and institutional policies for responsible AI use. However, we still need practical and pedagogical mechanisms to help faculty integrate AI meaningfully in their teaching practices. On the main challenges we identified was the gap between institutional policies and everyday teaching practices. Faculty members need practical examples, opportunities for peer dialogue, and institutional support to understand how AI could be integrated into the real classroom context. We also wanted to ensure that AI integration was aligned with our competency-based educational model and not reduced to a simple use of technological tools. The objective of this initiative was to identify, analyze, validate, and document teaching practices that integrate AI into teaching and learning process. More importantly, we want to transform individual faculty experience into institutional knowledge that could support other educators across these disciplines. The experience was organized in 4 sequential phases. The process began with the identification of faculty practices, followed by their refinement and alignment with institutional competencies. The practices were then validated through collegial peer review and finally documented in a structured institutional publication. The first phase focused on identifying teaching practices that integrate AI across the 3 UBG campuses. To do this, we designed a structured survey for faculty members with experience or interest in AI integration. The survey explored how faculty were using AI in teaching, their perception about its contributions to institutional competencies, and examples of practices implemented in their courses. This phase allows us to build an initial institutional mapping of AI integration across disciplines and providing the foundation for the following stages of analysis and refinements. The process also includes follow-up communication with faculty members to clarify and expand responses when needed. The second phase focused on reviewing and refining the teaching practices collected during the first stage. The practices were evaluated according to the institutional guidelines for AI use and the UBG Code of Ethics in order to identify those that demonstrate an appropriate and ethical integration of AI. Faculty members were then invited to expand their practices using a standardized format that provide greater pedagogical clarity and consistency. The practices also went through a qualitative review and a competency alignment process to ensure coherence with the university competency-based educational framework. During this phase, AI tools support the organization and analysis of information, while all academic decisions remain under faculty oversight. The third phase focused on collegial validation through structured consolidation session involving faculty members from the 3 UBG campuses. During this session, faculty members review and discuss the selected practices, providing feedback on their clarity, pedagogical coherence, and adaptability to other academic contexts. One of the most valuable aspects in this phase was the opportunity for educators from different disciplines to exchange perspectives and learn from one another. This collaborative process helps strengthen the quality and transferability of the practices across the different areas of knowledge. The fourth phase focused on the academic standardization and institutional documentation of the validated practice. During this stage, a writing and coordination team organized and refined the practices using a standardized structure to ensure clarity and consistency across the document. This process results in the first volume of institutional publication designed to compile and disseminate AI integrate teaching practices. And now, the process outcomes. The first phase was implemented between August and September 2025. During this phase, 60 faculty members participate in their process. At the end, we have 135 reported practices. One important finding was that the most participants were highly experienced educators, with many having more than 15 years of teaching experience. In contrast, their experience using AI in teaching was relatively recent, suggesting that the university is in an emerging stage of AI adoption, but with a strong pedagogical foundation to support future growth. For phase 1 also, we find out that faculty response also provided insight into current patterns of AI use in teaching. As you can see in figure 2, it's mainly being used to support teaching and learning activities such as instructional materials, case study, feedbacks, and assessments. Overall, these findings reflect an exploratory stage of adoption where AI is primarily used as a support tool rather than as a fully integrated component of course design. At the same time, the results show strong potential for future institutional growth and faculty development. For phase 2, our outcomes. The practices were reviewed according to institutional ethical criteria and guidelines for AI use, allowing us to identify 87 good practices. Faculty members were then invited to expand their practices using a standardized format. The practices went through an additional review process, allowing us to identify 25 good practices, and for those, we have at the end 18 approved practices. For phase 3, the third phase focused on the colleague validation of the select teaching practices through structured peer review session. One of the most valuable outcomes of this phase was the creation of spaces for dialogue, reflection, and peer learning around AI integration in teaching. At the end, for phase 4, the process resulted in the first volume of this institutional publication. Buenas prácticas de integración de la inteligencia artificial generativa en la docencia. The document was designed as a faculty development that provides practical examples, guidance, and recommendation for integrating AI into teaching while maintaining a strong focus on student learning and competency development. You may see at the bottom an example of the format used to document the practices, including the publication. I also include a QR code if you are interested to find out what else we can find in this volume. Please feel free to take it. We also have dissemination spaces. The dissemination process continues beyond the publication itself. During the first trimester of 2026, practices from the document were shared through institutional faculty development spaces, such as Cafecito Con and the UBG Faculty AI Club. These spaces promote reflection, collaboration, and peer learning among educational interested in AI integration and help extend the impact of the initiative beyond this document. This experience led us to several important conclusions. First, integrating AI into higher education requires more than isolated faculty initiatives. It requires structured institutional processes that guide and support teaching practices. Second, faculty members play a central role as an agent of innovation. The most mindfulness practices emerge from a real classroom experiences and were strengthened through collaborative process. We also found that colleagues' validation was especially valuable in providing the clarity, relevance, and transferability of the practices across disciplines. Another important lesson was the need to align AI integration with institutional competencies and learning goals. This helped ensure that AI was used to support student learning rather than simply as a technological tool. Finally, the process confirmed that documenting and systematic teaching practices is an important strategy for institutional learning and continuous improvement. This experience also highlights important implications for faculty development and institutional practice. One key lesson is that universities should move beyond policy framework and focus on a structured, practice-based process that support faculty in integrating AI into teaching. This experience also showed the importance of creative, collaborative spaces where educators can exchange ideas, reflect together, and learn from one another. But this peer validation process not only improved teaching practices, but also helped building communities of practice around AI integration. Finally, the initiative contributes to strengthening the scholarship of teaching and learning by promoting the systematic documentation, sharing, and reflection of teaching practices within a collaborative academic community. To conclude, this experience shows us that integrating AI into teaching is not only a technological challenge, it is also an opportunity to strengthen collaboration, reflection, and pedagogical innovation within the academic community. More importantly, it reminds us that faculty development becomes more meaningful when educators are able to learn from and with one another. So thank you very much for your attention. I will be happy to answer your questions.